Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha Golish, Executive Director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
All right. Hello. Welcome back to Strong Girl Talk. I'm Molly Herford here with my bestie, Dr. Sasha Golish. Sasha, it has been like a week or two for sports. I admit I've been like kind of a little bit out of it, but when I scrolled down your list of things we need to talk about, I was like, holy moly, do we have stuff to talk about? Positive, negative, somewhere in between. There's a lot going on before we dig into our back to school episode.
I'm like, now it's back to school, right? I feel like 2 weeks ago it wasn't back to school. I was like, oh, it's the middle of summer, things are great. And yes, by the calendar, summer does end on September 20th, but like summer really in our minds ends when it's like back to school for the children.
Yep. And as we talk about on this episode, we love a back to school moment. And we are taking pretty much all of September or end of August when this episode comes out, and then all through September to kind of talk about the back to school process for our active audience, for the moms, for the coaches, for the teachers, and of course for any kids who happen to be listening. But let's hit some sport highlights. I do admit I did keep up with the Leadville both bike and run, obviously. Very exciting to see Kate Courtney take the win, set the course record, finally besting Annika Langvad, who, funny enough, I believe was like the woman who was supposed to beat her at supposed to win world championships the year that Kate Courtney, kind of shocked the world and won world championships. So that was fantastic. Another course record that fell, the women's Leadville record, finally, 32 years after Ann Transon said it, got broken by Ann Flowers. So two Anns just smoking fast. And I think, I do want to give credit, where credit's due, to the woman who, was just over the record last year. That I think, we've talked about this. Once those records break, like you see,
yeah,
everyone comes after them, and it's awesome.
It's awesome. I think Raul and I actually watched Leadville. Like we actually watched the bike race. So it's harder to watch the running race. I think mostly just because Raul knows how to find the bike races. But yeah, so UCI mountain bike starts up again this weekend, and I think it's in Leger. But is it World Championships?
I think we have a couple weeks till World Championships, couple World Cups beforehand.
Yeah. Okay. So back underway, excited for short track, and for the Olympic distance, which I've never kind of understand why they called it the Olympic distance, but anyways, like we'll park that. I'm excited to see those coming back from Tour de France Femme avec Zwift to the mountain bike, right? Like I Puck Peters say, I wonder what's gonna happen. Holmgren, right? Like I wonder if Holmgren's gonna ride up in the elite or she's gonna ride U23. So super exciting weekend of mountain bike. US Open. Okay. So I love tennis, which we've talked about before, but like the US Open in particular. Okay, you just showed me something before we started recording. This is going to absolutely make you laugh. The US Open women's outfits are my favorite part of the tournament. It's my favorite part of tennis every year. Naomi Osaka's red sequin dress and like matching pom-poms in her hair last night. So she won her match last night, which was great. And we know she's had a bit of a rough ride with confidence over the years. I also watched the Venus Williams match on Tuesday night. That's a great question. I watched the Venus Williams match. Now I watch a lot of tennis. Can't tell you when. Venus Williams is 45, right? Like by like stereotypes, we would say she's past her prime. She took a set off the 11th seeded woman. And Venus, like it's not like Venus has been practicing like these pros have been practicing since, for the last year, Jan 1. Like she's been dipping in and out. And I mean, listen, she's got a long history of being a multiple time champion. But my gosh, was it incredible to watch her play. Like it was just like it was magical. Like it was just something magical.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, you have it in your notes here, and I've been seeing a ton about this. Venus's sister, Serena, posted last week about using GLP-1 for weight loss. And holy moly, does the internet have thoughts?
It's got opinions, eh? Unlike the Adam Grantism, where it's like if you have an opinion, you have to support it with fact. There's really just feelings. I'd say there's feelings flying everywhere on the internet.
And like,
Listen,
look,
go
I
ahead.
have complicated feelings about GLP-1s, like for sure. I think, most of us do. But I mean, at, at the end of the day, I will always go with her body, her choice, um, as my like basis for anything.
Well, and this is some of the stuff you and I have talked about offline is this idea like society is set up for thin people, right? It privileges thin people, right? It want like I have enough like pressure on myself having been a middle distance runner of like I feel I need to look like a certain way that's like grossly thin, like unhealthily thin. But in the context of it, I was more thinking about it of like maybe this is part of the solution, right? Listen, like there's people with genes, right? That make them more bigger, heavier, bigger boned, bigger muscle, carry more fat. Like there's a host of complexities going on here. And if you've done everything and are going to continue to do everything with like sleep, diet, exercise, stress, mood, and like this is part of your health package, sure. But it can't be the answer. It's part of a complexity of an answer. And then also at the same time, I have so much compassion and empathy for Serena. For one, the hate that she's for sure receiving right now. And just like two, like it's not for us to judge. It's not for us to judge. And what I'm really worried is that she feels she has to look a certain way, which is just like, we messed it up again.
100%. Yeah. I do applaud her for being open about it because I think for her it would be a lot easier to not and just be like, oh yeah, like I'm just getting back in shape. And I think people would believe that of her. So I think it is important for like especially a woman like at that age, 45 years old, like guess what? It's harder to drop weight at that age. And I think she's at least not perpetuating this stereotype that oh it just takes willpower and you can do it or it's just it's all about just like this exercise or this thing like no, this is a medical intervention.
And I'll just fact check. So Venus is 45, but Serena's the younger sister. So she's in the 41 to 43. So no, we're not calling Serena 45 years old because like someone would criticize us.
Apologies to Serena for that. Sorry.
Nobody wants to be older than they are, except when you're like a child.
I don't
Um,
know. I've actually been thinking about this. I think I'm going to start aging myself up just so people think I look really good. Right? Like, oh, you look great for like 48, despite like I'm 38 right now. Like, I think if I just roll like, oh yeah, I'm 50. Just I look fantastic for 50.
I yeah, I'm moving really well too. Like it's amazing what you can do. Oh yeah, okay, I like that thinking.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't watched any of the Rugby World Cup, although I kind of like get updates about it. I was thinking of Alona Mahar, who also like quite recently has taken like a lot of criticism again for the way she looks. It's over in England. Canada's in Pool B. Canada won their first game. I think the World Cup is like 6 weeks long. Like they play a game, they get 6 days off. You don't get 7 days off because then the tournament would be. But every Saturday right now is pool play. So Canada lines up against Wales this weekend. I don't know much about rugby. It's very fast. They're very,
Yeah.
very strong. Yeah, looks like fun.
I do have to admit, like, yeah, I do not follow rugby, but I now kind of obsessively follow Iona because I love her so much, and I think she's doing such amazing things for, frankly, the strong women of the world who happen to have the body type that is maybe not, what you typically would see on, you know, magazine covers. Don't get me started on the fact that Vogue, also like, sorry, tangent here. Vogue is launching their first AI cover.
What?
So, yeah, it was bad enough when we had to like see models on covers and feel bad about
Yeah.
ourselves. Good news. Now it's artificial and like it's an AI cover. So, feel even worse, and like it's harder to, actually look like something that's on the cover of a magazine. Fantastic.
So we've gone from airbrushing to AI. So the comparison factor is just like, just go eat the bonbons, put the bathrobe on, and just like give up now.
Pretty much. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Um, okay, for the first time this summer, I didn't watch the Diamond League. I was actually, because for the first time this summer, I was outside playing.
Yay. We're so
Um,
excited for the playing.
oh, you've no, and I've like none of the sports that I normally do. Um, so Nikki Hiltz won their first Diamond League in Lausanne. It was a very rainy, slippery, wet night. So, and it was pretty amazing how fast the entire women's field went in the 1500. The names that we're expecting to win at World Championships, Faith Kipyegon. Actually, Sege's not running the 1500, but Kipyegon wasn't there. I don't think Hull was in the 1500 either. Not to take away from their win, but I like thinking about how fast that final is going to be in Tokyo this year. Like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
100%. Yeah. And I do want to, you posted on your Instagram last week talking about bias. I would love for you to talk about that on this episode because I think this is a very important thing that we really see exemplified in track and field in particular, because it is one of the sports where you truly do have like a lot of very dominant Black athletes and also a lot of very dominant white athletes. And I think that makes for some really interesting social commentary on how we talk about these athletes.
So Keely Hodgkinson made her return to the Diamond League this weekend. So Keely Hodgkinson is the Paris 2024 Olympic champion. Um, all around great athlete. She was going to go for the indoor world record this winter. She got injured, so she hasn't really raced in a year. And she came back to Silesia, which is in Poland, to the Diamond League. So it was Silesia and Poland were sort of 2 days apart. And so in her first race, she ran a 154. It's incredible. Like we're verging on, are we actually going to see the 800-meter women's world record broken? I think it's been standing for 30 or 32 years. Des and Carrick covered this the other day. But what nobody is talking about with let's just say it, like very beautiful, right? Like she's a model, right? With a beautiful, thin, white woman crossing the line in 154 in her opening race. Nobody's going like, oh, hey, um, that's interesting that you've done that. Where with a black athlete, we'd be like, oh, hey, that's interesting that you've done that. Are you doping? And it was not to say that Keely is doping, but it was just a matter of like checking your bias. And she won by almost 2 seconds, if not 2 seconds in Silesia, and then came back 2 days later in Lausanne in the rain. And yes, she ran a little bit slower, but she ran a 155, which is again the second leading time of the year and was 1.9 seconds ahead of the next person, which in the 800 might as well be a football field. And nobody called bias. Well, I mean, I did, but nobody pays attention to me, so it doesn't matter.
I pay attention. No, I think this is just a really good point. Again, it is not to suggest anything about Keely. It is literally just to call attention to, I think we are very quick to question when a Black athlete has a result like this in a way that we are not when a white athlete does. And I think you could even see that with like the treatment. Yeah, I'm going to go back to, when Shelby Houlihan
Oh my God,
got,
literally was in my brain. Yep.
yeah, like I would say people were so much more sympathetic of her compared to some of just the vitriol you see about some of these like African athletes. And it's frankly, upsetting, disgusting, like just horrendous that we continue to, yeah, do this.
To perpetuate the bias. So yes, that's it. Yeah, Molly, we're not calling people out. We're calling people in. We want you to like, hey, check your biases, right? Like just think, maybe you just need to rethink some things, think differently. Like it's an opportunity for us to just think differently. And it's actually not to say point the finger at Keely. What it really is to say, what's your judgment against black athletes, right? Like let's just call it what it is, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's maybe less like it's maybe more, let's just stop pointing the finger and, you know, why don't we just kind of assume everything is good until proven otherwise? I feel like that also just makes the enjoyment of the sport that much better. Frankly, I would rather just assume everyone is clean until proven otherwise rather than casting aspersions when we don't have any of the facts. So,
Well, so I'm thinking of the Lego song, like everything is awesome.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Things that are not awesome. And I was actually going to put this in our show notes, but you beat me to it. Grand Slam track. So upsetting. They just announced that they cannot pay the athletes. And I would say it's not just that they quote still can't pay them. I think it's that they're not paying them is pretty much the like undertone now. Or at
Well,
least if like it's going to be a messy like take us to court to get paid kind of situation.
or do they not get paid as much? So it's interesting. People have been talking about it. Like as an investor, you're not going to want to come in and back pay athletes. And I'm like, but you could spin it as a PR story of like this investor comes in and saves Grand Slam track and honors the winnings from last year. Like I guess I don't see it as this like binary, haha, everything I don't see is binary. So like fine. But I just think that there's a way to talk about this differently. And listen, we're not in the meetings with Michael Johnson, and it is challenging, right? But I'm really worried about the disservice this does to track. Field's fine because they didn't have any field events. And field is actually really fun to watch if you do it the right way. But just the disservice that this does to track in particularly the North American community. But I'd love to see them think differently and like think about ways to honor their commitment. But I would be like, nobody, and I imagine the athletes would be this way too. Imagine they're like, oh, we're just not paying the people from 2025, but we're going to go ahead in 2026. Like in zero world, do you have integrity or any trust?
No, I think that's when the lawsuits happen. Also, like what athlete would show up for 2026 having not been paid for 2025?
Yeah, yeah.
And in other things that are continuing to annoy us, make us furious, etc. And we will include links in the show notes. So you can go back and listen to the two episodes where we've already talked about this. Sex testing with World Athletics. Talk to us about what's new and exciting in that.
Well, I don't know if it's exciting. I think it's really sad. So I have been on a deep dive. I'm working with some people. I'm hoping in the next week or so I can share the article. But we talked about this on February 10th. There was the consultation on March 25th. World Athletics announced that they were going to do sex testing. And then on July 30th, there was like, here's the protocol, how the member federations are to administer sex testing. In the March 25th to July 30th announcement, and it's actually in the consultation document around elite sport, they've gone to world ranking competitions. And my fear and our fear was that this was going to trickle down to youth athletics. Well, it's no longer a trickle down. It's now going to be mandatory because by moving from elite competition to world ranking competitions, by the way their point system is set up, when I was going through the list at level C, where it has points for the U20 championships, you start to see junior athletes included. And so what will be interesting, and there's again no judgment, but my question is, member federations submit to be part of the World Athletics events so that they can use these results for other athletes to compete in different places. And it goes all the way down to U14. So are we really going to start? And I think about the youth, I think it's called the Youth Olympics in the US, right? The 7, 8, 9-year-olds competing in track. Is that who we're testing now? So I'm a little bit up in arms.
I think that's completely reasonable. Like this is, yeah, it's funny. This is exactly what we said was kind of almost like the worst case scenario because you can very quickly see the trajectory of this getting into now high school track and field, right? Like you can certainly see it getting into collegiate, like, and then high school is just one step down. And then, yeah, who's to say this doesn't get into, elementary school, or is this just going to become like, part and parcel of like any kind of registration for stuff. And it's just so scary how quickly this has even like sneakily happened, right? Like this started as like a doc that came out in February, and we're now, you know, not even 6 months or
Yeah.
just 6 months, and now we're checking the U14s.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big
It's a big jump.
jump.
It's a big jump. Yeah. Ethically, there's a lot of challenges with this. Um, it's interesting. One of the things I've actually learned in this process, Molly, is the NCAA testing system is actually quite poor. It's not part of WADA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know that as I was going through. I mean, there's a lot of challenges with the NCAA right now. I think it does a lot of good things, but this NIL thing and this sort of relates to sex testing. Like, where's the coercion? Where's the consent? And where are we actually protecting the youth? And I do think things are changing and that like the way we develop athletes is going to be different. I still think you need to be a very well-rounded athlete, just to be the best version of yourself. Like I actually watching Djokovic play the other night. Djokovic was a ski jumper or mogul skier, which has given him the latitude and the strength to be able to do all the stuff he can do on court. I think you're going to need to have all those skills. I'm okay with how we're changing a little bit of the trajectory of athlete development. I think like that was going to happen. It doesn't change the pre-puberty thing, right? Like we can't develop athletes like pre-puberty. Puberty, like I don't know about you, puberty was that was a shitstorm of hormones, as Lauren Fleshman says so eloquently in her book. But I think we're really missing and we're really professionalizing things in the wrong way that are going to make sport not a place where people want to play anymore.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of, yeah, removing the play, setting up more barriers, making it less accessible, making sure that people don't feel as though it is available to everyone. It's very much like you can't play. So
Now,
yeah, uh,
okay, our episode that we recorded a couple weeks ago, oh my gosh, I don't know the last time I've had so much fun doing something like that, like talking about play. Like we just had so much fun recording.
yes, apologies in advance for how much giggling there is
Oh my gosh.
throughout that episode.
Yeah.
Or this episode, I guess, because we're gonna get into it in just a second. So yeah, we're talking back to school, and yeah, we'd love to hear from you what your questions, what your sticking points are in this month of September, in this back to school time. So hit us up, over on the Substack, over on Instagram, kind of wherever you can find us. We have all the links in the show notes. And with that, let's talk back to school. Hello and welcome back to Strong Girl Talk. I'm here with my very good friend, favorite co-host ever. I can say that because I'm married to the other one. He knows. Anyway, here with Dr. Sasha Golish in real life to record a back to school episode. I felt like we needed to open with that because we are talking a lot about like friendships and being back in the classroom with your friends, and that's really what we're doing here. So happy back to school for all who celebrate.
Oh, I love that. How many grades of school did you do? 12.
12, yeah.
No, because you had it in university. So 16?
Yeah. Yeah, 16. And then if you're going to count like preschool, then I guess like 17.
I think I hit 28.
Wow.
I got to find that picture of like back to school, year 28.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I'm obsessed with back to school. I was so excited when you said to me, like, we should devote September to back to school content. I was like, I am so here for that because it does not matter how old I am. The smell of new pencils, a new notebook, the notebook that's going to change everything, that's going to finally get my life organized. I love it. And I'm also really excited because I'm moving in the next week, like right at back to school time. So there's never been a better moment for me from like an organizational standpoint.
Oh my gosh, the shopping for organizational things must be so satisfying.
The lists, when I tell you, oh my gosh, it's phenomenal. That said, I do not have children, so I do not suffer the back to school that a lot of parents do, which is really why we're devoting the whole month of September to back to school for the parents, for the coaches, and, honestly, for student athletes who are listening to this, students who are listening to this. This is, I'm sure we have some high school and college listeners, and definitely we have some parents of all age.
So I just had this shocked look on my face. I think this is the last year of back to school with my stepkids. And it's like, oh my, like, Dex, you were 7. Like, how did this happen? I mean, he's in university. We don't go back to school shopping the same way. Actually, interesting enough, Molly, for his birthday, I got him an espresso maker, which is not what you're going to give your 7-year-old going into grade 1.
No, but that maybe plays into our fueling component of the the discussion around what the issues are with back to school. So yes, kudos to all the parents out there that are navigating back to school shopping right now. We see you, we're thinking about you, and we're here to help you with some issues that kids tend to navigate when they head back to school. I mean, you've dealt with this for a lot of years. What are your sort of memories of like when the kiddos were going back to school? Like what were their big stressors that you had to contend with, or your own? I'm like, I can go on my own too, but
I mean, it was always the like who's in my class, right? Like that's
huge.
right. And we don't talk about it enough. And
or we don't talk about it and we don't give credit to it being a big deal.
Right? It's really challenging, right? Like, so we talk about welcoming and belonging. Like we've talked a lot about this on the podcast already. There's tons of research about welcoming and belonging. Why do you love your friends? Because they give you that sense of belonging. And when you end up in a classroom, it's the first day of school, and then you look around and you feel like none of your friends are there and you have no sense of belonging. Like, it's like the worst part of work when you like show up in a new office and you're like, none of my friends are here and I have no sense of belonging. And just having that like empathy and compassion around it, right? And maybe not thinking about like, okay, one of the like things I hate, I love you, Raw. One of the things is the comparison of like, well, this is what it was like for me. Right.
Ooh, and it's so tempting, right?
It's so tempting. And it's actually just about the person that's in front of you. Right. And it's not about your experience and what you went through unless that person opens the conversation to that for you. And so I actually think, listen, ending up in a classroom without your friends, it's hard. Like, let's normalize that and saying like, this sucks, it's hard. But it's also good for kids in a host of ways. Oh my gosh. So I am for sure was a troublemaker. You definitely were not the troublemaker that I was.
Nope.
Oh. Yeah, so I needed to not be in a classroom with my friends, right? Like I for sure needed to be isolated. Okay, so hilarious things. So, and you probably actually were the same person. So if I don't know someone, I've like no ability to,
cannot do it.
yeah, like so shy. So like,
so if anyone's listening to this and you meet us at events,
oh yeah,
I'm so sorry. We're really nice, but you need to be the one to go first because we are both terrible at it.
Not only, and like that first moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like I'm such an introvert that way. So,
also, I'll forget your name because I'm so stressed about that first interaction.
Yes.
Bear in mind,
gosh.
I'm just thinking about like, how do I say my name? What is my name again? Oh, geez.
Okay, so teachers, like literally pass that back to teachers. If you have a kid in your class and you introduce yourself and they're so nervous, don't be surprised that they don't remember your name.
What's your take on like name tags on day one at any age? Because I actually feel like that's probably not the world's worst idea. Even if you think everyone knows everyone, if you have a K through 8 school, say, and you have kids that theoretically have been together for most years, I still think name tags are actually not the worst idea on the first day of school for the teacher and the kids, because you might have some new kids. You might have some kids who've changed drastically in appearance.
Yeah.
You might have kids who've changed how they want to be referred to.
Totally.
Like, even, going from Jenny to Jen, let alone, Alex to Alexa and so on and so forth. Like, just make it simple. Just go name tags.
I don't know a year that I didn't have a name tag on my desk from grade 1 to grade 9.
See, I don't remember ever having one.
Oh, totally different experiences. So I think it's a brilliant idea. Also, we didn't have them on us. We had them on our desks.
Oh.
And so they were like these big cardboard things. So then you decorate them. So you learn people's favorite colors, how they like to, like you then figure out who's artistic, right? Like who likes to do that. If they're drawing music notes, are they into music? Are they drawing things about athletics? Like I think it's just such a like simple way to get to know who people are.
For sure. And I know we have a lot of coaches who listen to this. So again, this is a great thing to do at practice, at tryouts, like the first one back, right?
Well, and then add, and what are your goals this season, right?
Huge.
And I think even as teachers, interesting. Okay, so nerding out here for a second. I'm doing a project with the math department. just
starting with the nerdiest thing you could say.
But quite possibly. And one of the questions, that I want them to pose is like, what do you expect to get out of this? Right. And so, yes, it's about a linear algebra course in engineering mathematics, like super nerdy. But all of a sudden, whatever grade you're in and, whatever you're coaching, like, what are you expecting to get out of this? Like, for someone, it's like, oh, I want to learn how to read a chapter book, or I want to get better at math. I want to get better at soccer. And all of a sudden you start to figure out, and here's like what's so important to me, is where that kid finds confidence. Because what we really need to be doing in the classroom as parents, caregivers, coaches, administrators, guidance counselors is finding those places where kids find confidence so that when they lose their confidence, we send them there to rebuild their confidence. Because, like, sorry, one of the things that drives me crazy is like, well, they shouldn't do, like, when you punish a kid and you're like, that kid's misbehaving. That kid's misbehaving because they don't fit in. They feel no sense of belonging and they're just trying to defend themselves. And then what do? You take away the one thing that they have confidence in. You're like, oh, you like that? Let me take that away from you. And then we're like, well, I wonder why our classrooms are in crisis.
Oh, yeah. And you actually, before we started recording, had another good point. Your kids may be trying to cope with the fact that like their best friend isn't in class. They're upset about it, and it's very tempting as a parent to, like you said, drop the, well, when I was in this situation, or kind of almost even worse, the very dismissive, well, you'll make other friends, or you'll forget about that friends change so much at that age. And that might be true, but that is not true for their current experience. And let's talk about it. What's the big thing you should never lead with?
It's going to be okay.
Because they don't know that. You don't know that.
And even if it is, it minimizes what they're currently going through. In a couple days, those are the words that you can use. But they've moved through it. And so we need to like normalize like managing stress and coping with things and saying like, that's really hard. Tell me more about some of the feelings that you're having. Okay, my favorite thing to say is that sucks, because like most kids are like, oh, thanks for like saying it in language that like resonates with me, and just seeing them for where they're at. I was doing an interview around the community sport leaders, and this was such a salient point that they made. So we put kids and young kids, so like let's say grade 1 to 3, in sports for 12 weeks. 12 weeks is a really long time at their point in life.
Huge.
So
if you actually think about that just by the numbers, right? Like a quarter of a year when you're 8 years old is 3% of your life.
It is a lot of time. And so that first week of school, if you're going into JK, SK grade 1, that is a long time in your time frame. And while we can see it is not that long, we need to renormalize our reframing to see that as like, this is really challenging for this person and I need to help them work through it and not dismiss their feelings by saying, it's going to be okay.
Love it. And I think, back to school, there's so many huge, like seismic shifts that happen for kids. Because as you say, 3 months is a really long time. The last time they had to be on a school schedule was back in May or June. And now in late August, early September, we're asking them to wake up on a Thursday or a Monday or whatever day school starts and suddenly be on that schedule and be on the ball, get to the bus stop on time, eat breakfast. Maybe to say nothing of the fact that, for high schools, some kids end up with lunch period at 9:30 in the morning and no other spaces where they have time to specifically eat for the rest of the day. And so much is thrown off for them. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
Agreed. I'm also like giggling a little inside. I'm like, oh yeah, you're not from here. In Ontario, summer is 10 weeks long. School ends the last week of June and school starts this Tuesday after Labor Day.
I feel like in the US, it's all over the board. It does not, there is no rhyme or reason.
Anyways, but you're right? You're out of this like routine. And so like, I think one of the things that we dismiss with kids in particular is we don't talk to them about what the routine is going to be like, right?
Yeah.
How do we like transparently set up the week before? Like, okay, this is how long it takes us to this is what time school starts. Or like a work back schedule. Oh my gosh, Molly, do you like a work back schedule?
I love a work back schedule.
They're my favorite.
I've got like big calendar written on here too. So we'll get to that once we get the micro level done. Talk about the work back.
But even just like saying like, hey, and your kids may not actually have a concept of time yet, but that's okay. You can still introduce it. So school starts at, let's say, 8:45, which is a pretty common time for school to start in Toronto, right? It takes us either X number of minutes to walk or drive. And I highly recommend if you have to drive, I'm very urban centric right now. If you have to drive, could you park about 600 meters from the school and just give your kids a little bit of physical activity? I promise it'll put them in a better mental state. It takes this many minutes to get to school, so then how many minutes is that from 8:45? And just actually like including your children, even if they don't have autonomy over it, including them in that conversation.
Definitely. And definitely go back and listen to our episode with Juliet Starrett earlier in the summer, because we talk about the bike or walk to school kind of walking buses, biking buses. And it's such a cool concept. Definitely contemplate that. And we talk about why that activity in the morning is so helpful.
So let's not leave this yet. So I just want to talk about kids that get on the bus, right? So if your kids are getting on a bus to go to school, and at one point I took a bus to school, we would actually go outside and play with the kids at the bus stop. So we would meet 15 to 20 minutes before. So even if you're sitting on a bus for like however many minutes, you get some of that exercise out. And then I remember the bus dropped us off at least 10 minutes before school started. So then you got more play in the playground. And I think we just need to think about ways to help our kids be active, right? The Canadian movement guidelines, 24-hour movement guidelines, recommend that every kid needs 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous, ladies and gentlemen, moderate to vigorous, not just regular movement, but moderate to vigorous movement every day.
Yep. Which means if you have kids that aren't in school sports, this is where that free play stuff really comes into play. And so I was actually at Joyride 150 yesterday. So this is a couple weeks ago, and as this is coming out, that was a couple weeks ago. Super fun, super cool to see just like kids there just figuring out new games and new ways to play on their bikes. And honestly, I did not see a lot of them standing still. Like they were all just shredding around, all different skills levels. It was very cute. Seriously, adorable. I was there with 3 younger girls, 5-year-old and 8-year-old, or 2 5-year-olds and an 8-year-old. And these like little boys kind of adopted them. Like they were boys that were at the park all the time. So they knew where everything was, and they were showing them around, helped them in the foam pit, helped them get out of the foam pit. It was so cute. Finding these ways to figure out the free play situation for the kids, I think, is huge, and something, again, Juliet talked about.
Well, and that creativity, right? So if you've got a kid that is like, fine, more arts creative, it's pretty remarkable the ways that they figure out how to play in a playground, right? Like we were limited in our view and our observations now as we get older, right? Like it's our experiences, it's whatever. But they don't have that. And we shouldn't, as parents, caregivers, coaches, administrators, we shouldn't force that rigidity on them. And we need to give them that space and that expanse to play.
Oh, yes. Love it. Okay, so that we talked about the work back schedule. I think we also want to talk about, especially if you have kids that are entering the school sport age or are in that like very scheduled age of like, here's tryouts and practice and all this stuff. The thing I see that parents tend to miss the most is like having one unified calendar where all of this stuff lives, because the number of overscheduled, and like, I mean, literally overscheduled, where stuff is scheduled on top of things because there's no like unified calendar system, is so helpful. And putting kids into this too, right? Like you could have a giant like dry erase calendar where the kids actually are they're in charge of putting some stuff in there.
My stepkids had a dry erase board on each of their doors, and it was updated weekly with like what was going on. So you couldn't not be part of the process. And yeah, mom and dad also added to that at times, right? Because they were like, hey, you've got this dentist appointment, this has come up, but can you put your school sports stuff in? Can you put your tests in? Like, can we add these things in? And it's this like mutual mastery and ownership of something, right? That we're creating patterns that we want them to have as they get older.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also adds to confidence, especially around things like tryouts and everything like that. Like if you can feel any level of control around tryouts, because when I was trying to think about the issues I wanted to talk about when we talked about back to school, stress around school sport tryouts is a big one. Do you have any? I have probably one nightmare story from the one time I ever tried out for school sports, which really says enough about that. What's your recollection of school tryouts?
No comment.
You loved it, didn't you?
I loved it. Every minute of it.
What made you love it? What was good? How do we make it good for kids?
So you got to remember, this was my place of belonging and where I excelled.
Yep, not me.
No, and so, but what was really cool was I really struggled with reading comprehension and spelling. So when I was 6 years old, I fractured my skull, and my short-term memory, particularly around then, was like terrible. And I had teachers who would help me find the confidence so I could like, just like most people at tryouts, where like the worst thing that they have to do is like stand there and practice the skill. The most challenging thing I ever had to do with no short-term memory was stand up in front of the class and recite my spelling words. But I had teachers who were like, hey, you find confidence in this. So what makes you feel strong when you're out there so that you can draw them? And I never felt comfortable standing at the front of the class, but I at least had these like tools to like cope and manage. And so, I wish, like the kids that like do well in other places, that we could be like, okay, well, what is it about you? Like, what are the feelings in your body that happen when you feel confident? How do we just get like the teeniest little sliver fire of that happening in you when you go to school sports?
Ooh, I like that a lot. And I think for any coaches listening, also just being aware that kids respond so differently to tryouts, right? You may actually end up missing someone who's going to be fantastic on the team because they are not good with that kind of pressure. They're really stressed. They're really shy. And I think that was certainly the case for me, for sure. I could not handle the stress of tryouts because so much of it was about being extroverted, basically.
Oh, see, I was just about to say, I could be introverted there. I could just do the skill.
You might have had a better gym teacher than me.
Well, I could bounce the basketball or shoot the basketball. I didn't have to talk to anybody while doing the sport or at the tryout. I could be quiet, but I had the skill. And I know that is not normal for all kids.
Absolutely, yeah. So just remembering, whether you're a parent or a coach, kids, some kids might just totally skate by and they might have the time of their lives at tryouts. For other kids, they want to be on the team, but they are so stressed out and so nervous about these tryouts, and they feel like the end of the world. And it comes back to the it's going to be okay thing. It's really tempting. I remember the one team I ever tried out for that I didn't make. Still really hate that gym teacher.
What sport was it?
Cheerleading.
Oh, I love you. You've just got like skyrocketed on my list of why I love you so much.
Here's like the really painful part, and it's going to make you hate my gym teacher too. I was the one girl who didn't make the team.
Ugh. Yeah, I'd like to take that gym teacher for a run and be like, I'll show you who's boss.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I still can't cheerlead to save my life.
Oh, I can't either, but fine.
Yeah, that was very traumatic for me. And after that, this gets back to the identity piece. I was like, okay, so I'm not an athlete, done. But I remember, coming home and being upset about it. And my mom just kind of being like, okay, it's okay. You're not you're not an athlete, big deal. And she's trying to be helpful. Like, God love her. She wasn't trying to be like, stick to your books. She was trying to help in that moment. But what that did was lead to another decade of me not wanting to opt into any sport because I wasn't an athlete.
Okay, but let's go actually, like, before that happens. I think one of the best things that we can do is actually ask kids, like, what are you so afraid of? And I think we need to do this actually just generally in sport, a better job of doing this so athletes can actually show up to whatever competition and just do better. When we actually like talk about our fears, because the fear in our head is usually way bigger than what it actually is, and being able to talk about that. Because then after, like, hey, how did tryouts go? Did your big fear happen? Yes. How did you manage it? No? See, I'm glad we talked about it, and I'm glad it didn't happen. Also, that you have nothing to worry about. That might be another one that I'm like, but I'm going to worry. Like, just
the fact that you're saying it makes me think there is something I need to worry about, actually.
Okay, that too. Yeah.
I wasn't worried before,
but now I am.
Sort of like being in a horror movie, like Don't Look in the Basement.
I don't watch horror movies because I'd never actually fall asleep. But yes, exactly.
Just would never sleep again. Honestly, I'm kind of the same way. Anyway. So kids are stressed around tryouts, and then,
Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. Just have the coach. Like, you're going to have the extroverted kid. I was not going to be willing to talk at tryouts. I had a ton of nerves. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was nervous about it. But imagine we as coaches, hey, we just addressed it up front. This is stressful for some people to try out. does anybody want to talk about how they're feeling? There's going to be some extroverted kid that is more than willing to overshare. So also like helping them set boundaries, but that normalizes that like nervousness for the person that's not willing to share.
Ooh, I love that. The other thing I think parents can do, and this is like a very practical thing, is pay attention to the fueling schedule for these athletes, especially with the tryout situation, because again, school lunches can be at such random times that by the time you're mornings can be really rushed. Kids don't necessarily get to eat a good breakfast. By the time they get to 3:30, they possibly haven't eaten in 6+ hours. You don't know what they ate. Yeah, like, and here they are doing these tryouts. So I think as parents, the one thing we can really help them do is be prepped with the snacks that they need throughout the day and have the plan in place with them. Like talk through, like, how are you going to, when are you going to eat this granola bar or drink this chocolate milk? Like, can you drink it just as you're kind of going from class to class? Is there a teacher that will let you drink in class? Really kind of working that out, because I think from a practical standpoint, there's a lot of kids that get to tryouts and are bunked because they have no concept of nutrition and fueling times and whatnot.
And also don't overcomplicate food for kids. Okay, we got to go back to breakfast for a second. Kids gonna eat something? Just let them eat it. Like, I think we pick the wrong battles with kids, right? Like, I remember when I moved in with Raul being like, yeah, Dax, like, just eat whatever you want for breakfast. And Raul being like, it should be a healthy breakfast. I'm like, no, I just want him to eat something, right? Like,
first of all, how are we even defining healthy? Because it's going to depend from kid to kid and situationally, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's just like, pick the battles. Like, the morning when they're rushed and they're trying to get to school is not the time to have the conversation of like, you should make a better decision. They're like, I'm stressed as it is. Don't make it more stressful. Okay, chocolate milk is like one, probably like, talking about a soapbox, I just need a chocolate milk box. I think chocolate milk is like one of the easiest, best things that we can do. So one, it has to be actual milk because otherwise it doesn't generally have protein in it. Soy milk is the exception, it kills my stomach. Chocolate milk is a great way to get protein, fat, carbohydrates into your kids before they go to school. Yes, it's got some sugar in it. Sugar is not the worst thing in the world. Again, like, what are we trying to do here? And then, you talked about snacks for kids and making sure they're eating balanced. Again, for me, it's like, just eat. Okay, so do you know what moon cheese is?
No.
It's like dried cheese. Okay, so like, I love cheese. And moon cheese tends to be like full of protein.
Okay.
But anyways, I love a moon cheese and almond snack. There's like something salty and savory about it. But like, have those conversations with your kids about like, what do they want to eat, right? Like, what are their taste buds like? Like, and let them drive the conversation. And just remember, so my sister and I growing up like ate very differently. She was the chicken fingers and fries. We got to go to some really fancy, fun restaurants when we were kids. Oh my God, my parents ordered chicken fingers and fries for her.
That would have been me.
But your taste buds are either not developed or so overly sensitive that stuff actually tastes disgusting, which is like one of the other funny things we say in our house. That's disgusting.
My mother is still mad that as an adult, I'm now willing to eat things that I wouldn't eat when I was a kid. And it's like the funniest thing to me because I'm like, yes, that's because I'm an adult now.
And my taste buds don't hate me.
Turns out I also like coffee and wine, but if you'd given to like, if you let me have that when I was 6, we would have had a problem.
Sasha makes no comment. I started drinking coffee at 6.
Well, I started drinking Mountain Dew at like
4?
Younger. My mom once gave it to me in a bottle as a baby because I was crying. So this is like family legend here. I was like maybe 6 months old. I was crying at the grocery store. I would not stop. All she had was a Mountain Dew that she was drinking. So she poured some in a bottle and gave it to me.
And you were quiet.
I was immediately quiet.
Love this.
So by the time I was in high school, I am not I'm not even kidding. I would be like a 2 liter of Mountain Dew a day kind of person. It's amazing that I've like made it through with like no health impact.
It actually is quite amazing. Mountain Dew is like one of the worst things that you can drink. Delicious.
It's still my pre-race drink. Just FYI, like 100 miler in the morning.
Best
Mountain
thing you
Dew
could
and a
do.
bagel. Thank you.
Well, I'd have a Red Bull too, just so you know. I'd have the Mountain Dew, the Red Bull, and the bagel.
Oh dear Lord. So yeah, it's funny. I said this on the Queen Stage podcast, and all of the women were so kerfuffled because like they're cyclists, and oatmeal and an espresso is very like the cycling
you
vibe.
Did that running? Like, oh my God.
I would die.
I
wouldn't have made it to the start line. I'd be in the porta potty.
You might be pooping on the trail with something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. I was like, you guys have no idea.
No idea. Yeah, it's the paint shaker stomach.
And then they were like, well, but don't you like end up with a sugar crash? I was like, no, because you start fueling right away.
Immediately.
Like, if you do it right, you don't. I've digressed so hard from this conversation.
No, but but we can tie it back, right? Like there's so much information now around fueling constantly, right? Like how do we engage with schools and school boards? Like if just with lunch schedules, it's not okay, fine. Chemistry and biology and you're dissecting things, this is a do not eat in there.
Yeah, not the time.
But like if your classrooms are in crisis and there's a kid in trouble and they're really struggling to manage their emotions, I bet you they're hangry. And so how do we actually address like normalizing needing to eat in smaller amounts, making them healthier choices, right? Like whether it's like dried fruit, the veggie sticks, like other protein snacks. How do we find low cost, easy to digest, easy to eat foods?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason that even as a non-athlete, I'd come home from high school and I'd have to drink, 20 ounces of Mountain Dew, probably a big thing of chocolate milk, a Snickers bar, and like
Snickers.
the Big Grab Cool Ranch Doritos. Granted, different time, but like
also good.
that was 2,000 calories I was housing right after school because I was so hungry.
Yeah.
Because of like the timing and the no eating in class stuff. So it's not that your teenagers are eating you out of house and home because they want to. They're very hungry.
And they're like quite literally very hungry because they're growing. And so there's so like, listen, when we went to school, it's a long time ago. There are so many better snack options. So just like, again, involving your kids, like what are the tastes that you like? Okay. Can we talk about like things in our lunches that like were disgusting, which is my favorite thing to say right now. So there is nothing worse to me than a mealy cut up apple in a lunch.
Oh, disgusting.
Right. So like, why are we not surprised that kids don't want to eat that? Right. Like, let's just be like realistic that like, that's not going to work. Right. Cucumbers can be okay. Okay. So white carrots, like when they dry out so badly that they no longer look orange, they're white. Like, I'm not going to eat that. I don't even know that I know now to stick it in water and it rehydrates and it's fine. But
hot cooking tip from Sasha here.
Well, I'm not cooking it. I'm just keeping it raw. But yeah, like but I wouldn't have known that in high school. And so I think we just need to be like a little bit more realistic, but with what we're asking the kids to do.
I love that. Love it. Love it. Okay. And again, making sure that your kid understands the importance of fueling too, because I think this is not something that they are taught in school. Like they are not going to recognize hanger or feeling bonked before practice or tryouts or whatever. These are conversations that parents and coaches need to have with the kids because kids don't know how to recognize that feeling and think, oh, I might be hungry. I might be low on protein. I might be low on carbs. They have no idea.
And also to say, nor should they, right? Like,
no.
Right? Like this isn't the point in their lives and like this is important. It's like just talking about fueling. Can we talk about sleep as part of this?
Definitely.
Because I was thinking as you ate all of that, except that you had so much Mountain Dew, that you had so much caffeine in you, is that like after school, come home, eat a big snack, crash, and then you can't sleep in this like terrible cycle that starts. And so I get that can be really challenging, but we need to think about ways that like kids are getting deep sleep. Sleep is the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. It is the most important things that kids need to do. And broken sleep cycles really disrupt their growth patterns. They disrupt their hormones. It dysregulates kids. And so, I think it's really important as like the transition to school starts, right? So depending on when this comes out, but a week before, you really need to start trying to get your kids up earlier in the morning. And you're going to have one really tough day with them as they're exhausted that day, but they'll go to bed earlier.
And that day should not be the first day of school.
No, how unfair is that to a teacher? Okay, so then let's go back to the first thing that we talked about. So if your kid goes to school tired and they show up in a classroom with none of their friends, you should not be surprised that they cannot manage their emotions.
I was actually just going to say, can we talk about big emotions?
Well, just led right into that, didn't it?
Perfect. As usual. Just flawless segues. So I'm going to say this is on my mind because we had some big emotions at the bike park last night. And it happens.
Okay, so let's talk me through how you worked through that yesterday with them.
Oh, I didn't. I'm not a mother. I'm kidding.
I love you.
I was like, help! This child needs their mother around because I don't know how to handle big emotions. Honestly, the fact is, I would not have actually like been able to put that name to it. If we hadn't talked about that actually at the Shard Girls book for Lindsay and the Curse of Gemini Lakes, buy it on stronggirlpublishing.com. At the book launch back in the end of May, you and I got asked a question by one of the parents about how kids could deal with big emotions. And I hadn't really thought about it before as a, we'll say teacher and coach, I guess. And I mean, my typical response to them tends to be distract and like, I don't know, hurl a like pack of like Welch's like fruit snacks, like, and then run, which honestly kind of works.
And sometimes that's actually the answer, Molly, because they're just so hungry, right? And they just need the sugar hit. Okay. Hello, I'm Sasha Golish, and sometimes I have really big emotions. I think what we need to remember is kids aren't the only ones who have really big emotions. The difference is they don't know how to manage them. Actually, let me.
I'm like, hang on. I don't really know how to manage my big emotions either sometimes.
I was just about to say that. I was like, hold on. There are moments where all I do is go sit in the bathroom and cry. And that's okay, right? Like, I don't think it's appropriate to like cry in a large meeting over the age of 40, right? Like,
oh, I like that you said 40. I've still got 2 years.
Yeah, you got time. You're still allowed to do it. But it's actually okay if that kid has a really big outburst in class, right? And to talk about it, like, and also to remember that that's going to happen. Okay, your dog is licking my toes, which is like, I've officially made it.
You have made it. I didn't want to say it, but you're
like, it's so, anyways, keep going, DW. But, that kid is also going to be so embarrassed by their big emotions too. So then you have big emotions on big emotions, right? And it spirals. And so the one thing I think that's so important is getting down on their level and looking them in the eye. So when you stand over a kid and they have big emotions, it's so intimidating and it's power over. And what you really need to do in those is give them power with and power to, so that they actually then learn to understand when those big emotions are coming, but also what they need in those moments for those big emotions. And they'll tell you what they need.
Mm-hmm. And again, this applies to the classroom and it applies to tryouts, after school sports, all that stuff, because you're going to get those big emotions there too. Now, for a parent talking to a kid about the big emotion concept, I don't know if you actually have an answer to this as I asked the question, sorry. Okay. Is there any kind of like prompt or help you can kind of give your child to guide them through the big emotions like on their own?
So you have to go through it with them to start. So I think there's this we think it's this binary, right? Like, oh, my child solved their big emotions. I never need to be there with them again, right? Like, it's a process and we're going through it and depending on the emotions. But I think it's really like, I've recorded a podcast with someone. I think we've really lost touch of like asking the question, how are you? How do you feel? And we ask that in such a like dismissive way, but it's actually one of the most important things that we can ask. And what kids can't do is actually name their emotions, but they can start to describe things and we can help them name those emotions. And so I think the best thing that we can do is actually you have to start sometimes by asking closed-ended questions, but then direct them into an open-ended way. So when the person's really overwhelmed, like, okay, so like think about you're like super overwhelmed. Someone's like, tell me what's going on. And you're like, are you kidding? There are so many things going on right now, right? If someone said to you, are you feeling overwhelmed right now?
Perpetually.
Yes. Okay.
Always.
But all of a sudden you can go, yes, and you can take a breath, right? And so then it's how many closed-ended questions do you need to ask to get the person to like calm down a little bit? And then you need to like figure out how to talk to them to open up, to get them to open up. And that's going to be really different for every kid. But you as the caregiver and as you get to know them as a coach and a teacher, you're going to know what those words are for them.
Love it. Okay, what's your thought on like the take a deep breath concept? Because I think I'm a little mixed on it. I think it can be delivered way too kind of cavalierly, like just take a breath. Like,
it makes me crazy. Like, it makes me angrier. I'm like, take a breath. Take a breath. I want to scream at the top of my lungs. Don't tell me to take a breath. I'll take a breath so I can yell louder.
Also, I'm breathing right now. Clearly, I am breathing. I'm alive, therefore.
So there are times when it's like, so for me, it's actually, so I actually think about pushing my hands down, right? And so it's actually, if you've ever seen me on a start line, I do it. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll like literally be like, and it's actually for me pushing out the like strong emotions. Listen, if I'm home alone and I'm frustrated, I'm also going to let that out, right? But someone, I can't remember who said this, your kids all day fill their backpack with their emotions. And if most of the time they hold themselves together, and if they come home and they need to open up their backpack and let them out, that's actually a really good thing, right? And we should like normalize them, like hey, how come that? And it's like, how come you were carrying that around all day? Like, what happened? Right? So maybe they can then deal with the conflict in the immediacy of it and not bring that home, or like de-escalate it a little bit. But I think that we just expect, and I think we expect this from it's just like social media land, like everything is awesome and I'm always thriving. Not reality.
Nope. Yeah, I think the take a breath trope is just very frustrating to me sometimes, because I think it's this well-intentioned piece of advice that is just not enough.
Okay, so scientifically, I'll tell you where it comes from. So thinking fast and slow, system 1, system 2. So if you take the breath, you're more likely to engage system 2, which we would say is like the thoughtful reaction. And if you don't take the breath, you're going to have the emotional overreaction. So someone took it. I think Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky are the two very intelligent men, both who have passed away. But they are the godfathers of this thinking, and we've taken out of context what they meant.
Ooh.
And that's why, and it's the how are you, take a breath. We're not saying it with meaning anymore. If someone really looks at me and is like, breathe with me, take the breath, that's very different than take a breath.
Okay, so yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like when someone says take a breath, what they're really trying to say is stop crying, stop screaming. They're not actually trying to... You were trying to pick up the dog, weren't you?
I thought he wanted up.
You were close. He's very bad at getting up for anyone else. It's very hard. Yeah, like when you're crying and someone's like, take a breath, all they want you to do is stop talking. Like they want you to stop doing what you're doing. Versus, I think, the invitation to breathe with me, or, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths if you want to follow along. Like that, I've actually, I've done it with my niece, and I think that does work when it's both of us are kind of in unison. She'll, still be sniffling, but she'll start to kind of follow the pattern and really come into it. But it's not as simple as just take a breath as this sort of, I'm annoyed at what's happening here and I want to shift the narrative. So take a breath.
Well, and let those tears out, right? I think it's really important sometimes to be let the tears out, right? Crying's kind of normal, right? There are, again, please don't cry in the middle of a meeting where it's not appropriate, or when you're interacting with someone over a conflict, it's not professional, but we're adults. But with kids, they're not adults. They don't have that frontal lobe, and it's actually, when you're trying to tell someone to, okay, so here's actually why we both don't take a breath. You're telling the person not to let their emotions in and bottle them up.
Yep, exactly.
It's
a code, but that's what you're telling them.
And that is the worst thing that you can do for kids, right? How do we show up with good vulnerability, good authenticity? How do we start naming our emotions, right? Inside Out and Inside Out 2 are great movies to watch about thinking about how to work with emotions with your kids. And they're movies that you can watch with your kids when they're old enough. You don't have to say anything. And actually, it might be really important to not say anything so that your kid can go away and work through whatever they're going through. And if you have a good relationship with your kid, I promise they'll come to you. Every kid came to me as they were growing up when they were ready.
So good. So good. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, so Scotty Sports Psychology, you may remember we had Hannah Silver-Breen from there on the podcast a few weeks ago to talk all things body image. We actually have another one of their awesome
body
women.
Confidence.
Body
Come
confidence.
On. I stalk your work, Hannah. And Scotty.
You're the best. We love you. Anyway, I was very excited. They put us in their newsletter. They mentioned the episode, which if you didn't listen to it, definitely go back and listen to it. And I'll include a link to their newsletter in the show notes here. They did a great newsletter about back to school. And one of the things they mentioned was this concept of leaning on your support system. So whether you're the athlete or the coach or the parent in this case, I thought it was an important one to kind of end on, because I think there's a lot of students, a lot of student athletes, a lot of young athletes that have heard this phrase support system, but have no idea who their support system is. So one thing I was thinking for coaches or parents or whoever's listening to this, caregivers, help your athlete figure out who their support system is and who they can go to for stuff.
Well, and I think we often dismiss their peers,
Yeah.
right? Okay, listen, peers can also give terrible advice.
Oh, yeah,
like,
definitely.
For sure. Like,
Frankly, if it's about relationships, don't listen to your peers.
also don't listen to me. But I think that it's thinking about like who makes you feel like you're the best version of yourself, right? And like that's where you should start in terms of like your support system. I think for parents right now, it's this like tough balance. And my parents did a phenomenal job at this. They were not my friend growing up, right? And you can be a support person without being a friend. And actually, you're a better support person when you're not a friend. And I have, my parents are some of my best friends now, right? Like they held us accountable, but they let us work through our emotions in a way. And like we were like, listen, we weren't perfect. Like, and I didn't have a perfect growing up. Like I'm not trying to Pollyanna it, but I think we really need to rethink caregiving and parenting around this. Like, well, I want to be friends with my kids. It's like, no, you don't. What you want to be is that support person so that when they come to you, when they're really in trouble, you can help them, but you don't want to be their friend. Not right now.
100%. Yeah. And I think making sure who your kids can go to, especially this is for caregivers, who your kids can go to who isn't you.
Totally.
Right? Like my niece knows that she can call me if she if she needs to talk and like isn't super comfortable talking to her parents. We have family friends that same boat. Like I think helping your kid figure out who that person is that isn't you, they're going to find someone regardless. So like it's probably also just better that you make this decision kind of together.
Wholeheartedly agree, right? I think it's introducing the kids in our lives to the other adults that we like trust and respect, right? Psychological safety, right? All comes back to psychological safety, right? We want to create spaces of psychological safety with our kids. And so we need to surround them with adults that are not their parents and caregivers, that can be trusted and respected adults in their lives to guide them, right? Like we want to get to a place where we're a guide on the side. Right? Like we don't want to be this, like when your kids are young, you are the sage on the stage, right? A lot of directive parenting. It's pretty authoritarian. That's not the right, authoritative. There's a word here that I can't quite say, but it is directive. And you want to like slowly tease out that autonomy, right? Where we let them do a little bit more and a little bit more. Jonathan Haidt has this great website called Let Grow, which like really helps parents and caregivers like navigate like finding trusted adults in their lives, for kids to gain independence, right? Like all these different things so that they can find their support crew.
Absolutely.
And get a dog.
If we had video, it would be adorable this episode.
My feet have never been so clean.
All right. With that said, happy back to school season, and we will catch you next week with our episode with Stacey Manila, where we are talking more back to school, but again, great for everyone to listen to. And of course, make sure you are subscribed, rate, review, etc. We so appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Thanks so much for tuning into the Strong Girl Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely head over to wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode. And head over to stronggirlpublishing.com to check out all of the books by Strong Girl Publishing's authors, including Molly Herford, Misha Powell, and so many more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.